So JDBC is a specification which is implemented by third-party vendors, and the implementations of those third-party vendors, we call them as what? Drivers, JDBC drivers. Now, as a programmer, if you want to write Java application, right, to interact with the databases, so you need to use the driver which is implemented by that particular database vendor, as we discussed it, right? So here, this is the architecture you will have for a JDBC application. So what is the architecture here? So typically the architecture of JDBC application looks like this. So you will be writing a Java application, right? And so you will be developing this application with the help of a JDBC API, as we discussed yesterday. But JDBC API or JDBC specification, we take the help of this document to design to develop the Java application. And there is underlying database vendors are there. So each and every database vendor will give their driver software, right? So they give their drivers. These drivers are nothing but what? You can say what? Some kind of software which are implemented by the third-party vendors, and this JDBC application uses these drivers to interact with that particular database. So this is what we discussed here. Two things here. So if you want to write any database Java program to interact with the database, first thing is you require the driver which is implemented by third-party vendor, and we take the help of this driver to interact with that particular database, right? So like this, different database vendors gives us different drivers, and you can use the appropriate driver. So you need to identify, as a programmer, you need to identify the driver for a particular software, right? So Oracle driver. So what is this drivers here? So these we call as drivers, nothing but implementations. These things we call as drivers. They are implementations of the database vendors, right? So this is what you have. Java application we develop, and we develop this Java application with the help of the JDBC API, and then so database vendors provides us the implementations of the JDBC specification, and they will give the drivers. Now as a Java programmer, if you want to interact with Oracle database, so you need to use the Oracle driver which is given by the Oracle Corporation. Now if you want to interact with MySQL, you need to use the driver software which is given by the MySQL people. So these drivers, in simple I can say, these drivers are nothing but what? A middle layer in between your Java application and the underlying database softwares. There are some middle layer, so which takes the Java instructions and this passes these instructions to what? Underlying database server, and whatever the results which are given by these database servers, simply these results will be given back to what? The Java application, a interface between. So a driver is nothing but what I can say here. It acts like an interface between the Java application and the underlying database servers, right? So these driver softwares are bridge, I can say what? There is some kind of a bridge is required to convert the instructions of what? Your Java to underlying database. It is something like it is almost similar to when you try to run your Java program. So what happens here? This .class file will be given to a virtual machine, and virtual machine converts it and converts it to underlying operating system format, and it executes it. So a JVM kind of software which takes the Java code and which converts it to underlying operating system format and executes. In the same way here, this driver acts like a bridge between, these drivers are nothing but softwares kind of things which acts like a bridge between the Java application and database to convert the instructions of Java instructions to understand database understandable format of instructions, and whatever the results which are given by the database softwares, so to convert these results back to what? Java calls, right? So there are these drivers, whatever we are talking about, this intermediate layer which takes care about converting the calls from the Java to database and database to Java. There are 4 different types of implementations you can have, right? So like there are 4 different types of implementations you find for these drivers. So we call them as type 1, right? The first one we call as type 1 driver, JDBC type 1 driver, all for the same purpose, converting the Java calls to database and from the database to what? Java calls. Type 2, right? So like this type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. These are the 4 different types of drivers we have. Type 3 and type 4. So these are the 4 different types of drivers we have here. Any one you can use, that is absolutely your requirement dependent which one you want to use, right? So each driver has its own advantages and its own disadvantages. So you need to choose which one is the best one when you develop your applications, right? So the type 1 driver, or it is called as JDBC ODBC bridge driver. It is called as JDBC ODBC bridge. So what is the meaning of this one? We try to understand here. But whatever the driver you take, all drivers are for the same purpose. Converting the Java instructions to what? Database. Type 2 is called as native API driver. Native API driver. Right. Third one is called as what is the third one is called as net protocol driver. And the fourth one is called as native protocol, right? So this is how you have these drivers, all are for converting. So you can use any one here, native protocol driver. You can use any one here. Out of all these, you can use any one. So there are 4 different drivers are available, by using which a Java programmer can interact with what? The underlying database softwares. Type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. All are a intermediate layer. I can say what? A middle layer between your Java application and what? Database softwares, which takes and converts the instructions from Java to database and database to Java. Right? Right. So here there are some differences you have in between them, and there are some similarities you have in between them. So we try to understand what differences you have. Just each has, the first one is called as JDBC ODBC bridge driver. So there is architecturally they are different. How they are going to convert the instructions from Java to what? Database, and database to Java. Architecturally they have differences, but every driver used for the same purpose. But now let us try to take one of the driver here. Right, so I'm describing the type 1 driver. What is the type 1 driver? We call it as JDBC ODBC bridge driver. Right, or we call it as JDBC ODBC bridge. The name itself says JDBC is a Java database connectivity, internally uses a open database connectivity. So already we have discussed this today. One single API which is given by all database vendors, that is we call as ODBC. So Java can use what? JDBC driver can use internally uses what? This ODBC bridge to interact with what? Underlying database. So JDBC driver can use internally the ODBC bridge to interact with the underlying database software. But it has it has some drawbacks here as well as advantages you have, right? So we'll try to see what advantages you have and what drawbacks you have here. To show this, let me take the help of okay, we'll take the help of again drivers. Yeah, so here I'm taking the help of what? So this architecture is you can draw here. So just I'm going to take the help of Wikipedia. This very good articulation is given in this. So a JDBC driver is what? A software component enabling a Java application to interact with what? Database. And there are 4 different types of drivers are there, and any one you can use to interact with what? The database. That's your requirement dependent. So are analogs to what? ODBC drivers, right? So they are almost similar to what? ODBC drivers. To connect to a individual database, JDBC requires driver for each and every database. This is what we are trying to discuss. The JDBC driver gives connection with a particular database and all, then you can use it. So these are the 4 different types of drivers you have: bridge driver, native API, net protocol, or native protocol driver. So like this you have 4 different types of drivers with this different names here. right? So we try to understand. So this is what this diagram is important. I'm just copying this image now here. Just I'm going to paste this image here. So this is my image here. Is it entirely copied? Copy image. Paste. It's not copied entirely, it seems. No. Fine. So here, if you see this image here, you can understand. So what is this diagram? So just this diagram represents some conversion of calls. Still. Fine. So if you see this, now what is this here? So Java application, whatever the Java instructions we'll be writing, they will be given to what? JDBC, ODBC bridge. You can see here, they will be internally converted to what? JDBC, ODBC bridge driver. From this, they will be converted to ODBC calls. From that, database specific calls. Right? So are you following here? So JDBC Java application will pass the instructions to what? JDBC ODBC driver bridge here. This bridge converts them Java instructions to JDBC ODBC bridge instruction. From that ODBC driver instructions, from that database specific library. From that it interacts with what? Database software. So this is how this instruction, this is how the Java can interact with the help of this one, right? So type 1 driver is also known as what? ODBC bridge. Is a database implementation, driver implementation that employs ODBC driver to connect what? Database. So Java program takes the help of what? ODBC bridge. Takes the help of what? ODBC bridge here, and with this bridge, this middle layer, Java program can interact with what? Database software. Right? So this layer is nothing but what? This architecture shows you how the conversion of data in between database server and the Java happens. That is only the thing. Right? So the driver converts the JDBC calls to what? ODBC calls. Right? So what happens here? What happens when you use as a ODBC as intermediate layer? So what happens here if you use the ODBC as intermediate layer? As we discussed yesterday, this ODBC is entirely developed by using what? C and C++ kind of languages. Your Java application depends on what? The driver is platform dependent, as it makes use of what? JDBC. So what happens? Your application also becomes what? Platform dependent and operating system dependent, right? So which in turn depends on native libraries underlying operating system and the JVM is running upon. So your code will depend on a particular operating system, right? As well, the second drawback is this ODBC bridge is a software actually. This bridge is what? A software. Yesterday I shown you. So this software needs to be externally installed in the client's machine where you want to use this driver to connect to a database. So this external software also need to be installed, so that only you can make use of this ODBC bridge. It is a software. This driver is a software kind of thing, and which comes with only few operating systems like Windows. It will not available with all environments. So it is simple to use actually. Coming to its advantage, it is very simple to use. So here you need to have a Java software installed, you need to have a database software installed, and in between this bridge software need to be installed, and the single API through which you can interact with what? Multiple different databases. Through this ODBC, if you want to interact with Oracle, you can interact through this. If you want to interact with what? MySQL, you can interact like this. Different databases, you can interact with this single API. It is easy to use, that is fine, but it has lots of disadvantages. What it is, it becomes, your code becomes a platform dependent, right? And driver leads to other installation dependencies, like the software need to be installed, ODBC must be installed in a computer software, right? And so because it becomes, your application becomes what? Dependent of application, as well as the conversions in between your Java to what? Database. There are many number of conversions are there. From this to ODBC bridge, from this to driver calls, the native calls of database, like this you have layer conversions are more, so that performance also will be less when you go for this, right? And it's not portable in between different environments, right? This is not suitable when you have, right, high transactions. When you have high transactions, when you have multiple interaction with the database, it is not preferred, right? So here, like this, you have here the driver has been written so that loading it causes, like this you have performance drawbacks and all. So it is huge. It is easy to use, but it has lots of disadvantages, performance, platform dependent and all. So absolutely you can use it, no problem, you can use it. Still it works, your program works. I'm not talking your program works or not. Definitely your program works using this also. But due to this kind of drawbacks, nobody prefers to work with this kind of driver in the industry, right? So this is called as JDBC, ODBC bridge driver. So the Java driver, it depends on what? ODBC bridge. It's kind of a software need to be installed in a particular system where you want to use it, right? So is the one you have. The second one we call as native API driver. And this driver, whatever the JDBC, ODBC bridge is there, we are talking about, this is implemented by the Java people only. This is implemented by Java people, and this driver can be interact with what? This driver can be used to interact with what? Different databases. It's not only single database, right? So this same driver can be used to interact with what? Multiple databases. This is the advantage you have. So, and this is implemented by Java people only, not ODBC. I'm talking about JDBC driver, right? Now here this one type 2 driver. What is this type 2 driver? Also known as a native API driver. So it will not use this driver. This implementation will be implemented by whom? This will be implemented by the database vendors, right? So type 2 driver we call it as, and implemented by what? Database vendors. Still I'm not getting entire. The problem, right? So this is called as type 2 driver. So what is this? Again the same story. Whatever the type 1 is doing, the type 2 is also going to do the same thing, converting the Java to what? Database to Java. But this is a different way it converts the instructions. Here it will not use any kind of third party software called as ODBC. So this is purely implemented, this is implemented by database vendors. This is implemented by what? Database vendors. This middle layer will be implemented by database vendors, and which will not take help of what? Any other special what? Softwares like ODBC, right? So is a database driver implementation that uses a client-side libraries, right? The conversions will be less compared to the first one. The conversions will be less. Java calls to what? Native calls of the driver, and from that database. Then from this, like this. Previous you have more conversions. So comparing to the previous driver, if you use this one, this is more faster than what? Previous driver, because the number of conversions are less. And if you want to go with this kind of software, no need to install any special software like ODBC. Are you following me here? All are used for conversions only. The difference is how they convert. The instructions will be different. That's it. And you need to choose which one you should use according to your requirement. Getting me here, what I'm trying to say here. This is how internal architecture of your Java application. This is the internal architecture. How when you write a JDBC program, how your program calls will be converted to database calls with the help of these drivers. This is the internal architecture. What happens when you use the drivers here, right? So the driver converts, again JDBC method calls to what? Database calls, same thing, right? So for Oracle database, it is implemented Oracle people has implemented it like this. Each and every database vendor will implement these drivers. That's their option. It's not compulsory that every database vendor must implement it. The type 1, the first one is already implemented by Sun Microsystems. Second, third and fourth must be implemented by some third party vendors. Now Oracle people has implemented it. It is called as OCI 8. OCI 8. Oracle OCI 8 of type 2. Oracle people has implemented this kind of driver here. So you can use it to interact with what? Oracle database. Like this, if MySQL people, you cannot guarantee. They may implement it, they may not implement it. But Oracle people has given type 2 for us. Right? So what is this? It is faster than type 1 because number of conversions are less. Right? So disadvantages is again the same story. This driver, whatever the driver we are talking about, again this is implemented by using some native languages like C and C++. Again the same story. Your application depends on what? The third platform dependent. Your application depends on some other softwares here. Right? See here, the driver is platform dependent because it is implemented using C and C++ kind of languages. Right? And not all database vendors will give this kind of driver. Only few databases will give, database vendors will give this kind of driver. And Oracle people has given this, that is Oracle's OCI 8. Right? So like this you have. Fine. Don't much think about these drivers. I can say these drivers are simple set of classes. Simple set of what? Programs. That's it. This is also interface. This interface is some kind of developed by using some kind of programming language. That's it. So some may use some kind of C and C++ kind of languages. Some can be developed by using Java kind of languages like this. A simple set of programs. And by using these programs, with the help of this simple set of programs, I am able to convert what? I am trying to convert Java and I am trying to interact with what? Database softwares. Right? And this interface will be developed by using the programming languages like C and C++. That what happens here, your application depends on what? The underlying your application becomes what? Platform dependent because other languages. This is type 2. And Oracle people has given such kind of thing also, such kind of driver for us. You can use it. But your application depends on the platform. That is the what. But it is bit faster than what? Type 1. Now you talk about type 3 here. What is this type 3 here? Right? Again different architecture. So what is this type 3 here? Same thing, converting from Java to what? Database to Java. But here instead of this, there is a middle layer server which is used to this task. A server, software which is used to do this task like ODBC, same as. But there is a middle layer server, a separate server software will be created and the server software will help you to interact with what? Any database server. It can interact with what? It helps you to interact with what? Any database server. Right? The same thing here. Type 3 we call it as, and it is net protocol driver. Network protocol driver. Or it is said as pure Java driver for database middleware. Right? It's a database driver implementation which makes use of middle tier, a server software. Right? And where JDBC can interact with the server software and the server software can interact with underlying database servers. Right? So here, what is this here? How it is going to work? So you might have understand what advantages, what disadvantages you have here. So there is a special middle layer software is required to be installed here, which takes care about converting the Java instructions to underlying database instructions. Right? So what is going to do here? JDBC calls to what? Middle layer, sends the JDBC API calls to middle tier server and translate these calls to database specific. Right? So follows the 3-tier communication here. 3 different architectures, your application code and a middle layer server and the database servers. 3-tier architecture. Right? Advantages. Yes. Disadvantages. You require a special software, server software which is going to take care about these conversions here. If this middle tier is not there, you cannot work with this. It's a special software. It's not implemented by any database vendors and all. It is special software implemented by some third party people. And there is one kind of server is there which can be used here, IDE server, but people generally will not use this. Right? Now the server makes the Java and database independent. Conversions in between them will be independent here. So again, but here you need to download this software, you need to install it, and then you should use this. Right? So most generally this is not used. Right? Now here the last one we call it as type 4 driver, and this is the one which is the most used and important one, pure Java driver. What is this? Pure Java driver. That means what? So whatever the middle layer we're talking about which should be implemented, now this middle layer is entirely developed by Java kind of programming language. So there are set of Java programs, I can say, right? So this middle layer is nothing but this middle layer, whatever we are talking about, driver is nothing but a set of programs, and the set of programs can be developed by using different languages. And the type 4 driver is purely implemented using what? Java language. That is called as pure Java driver or thin driver, Oracle's thin driver. Right? So the JDBC type 4 driver is also known as a direct pure Java driver. So you can see here there are no number of conversions like previous drivers. Directly Java calls will be converted to what? Type 4 to database, then database to Java. Only one conversion you can see. Very less conversions you have, and this middle layer is purely developed by using Java kind of software. Nothing but set of programs here. Set of programs all what? Developed by using Java only. The type 2 is also looks same, but that is developed by using some kind of other programming languages, C and C++. It is pure. So what happens here? What advantages you have here? So your application is not platform dependent because your application is using the middle tier, and this entire middle tier is developed by using Java kind of technology. It is the first advantage you have. No need to install any special softwares like type 1 and type 2 or type 1 and type 3. No special softwares are required to install. Java software and database software is required because this middle layer is also developed by using Java, set of Java programs. So no need to run this middle layer, to take the help of this middle layer, no need to have any special software is required, installation is required. Right? So here, but who will develop this middle layer? Database vendors. This middle layer entirely this is developed by what? Database vendors. So if we talk about Oracle people has given us type 2 version and type 4 version. Any one you can use. If you go for type 4 version, what happens? Your application will not depend on a particular database software. Your application will not dependent. But type 2, when you use it, your application becomes dependent of the environment, right? So this is like you have here. So written completely in Java, platform independent, right? Because this middle layer can use the virtual machines and all. Provides a better performance than type 1 and type 2 drivers. Right? No special software need to be installed, and it is faster comparing to all drivers whatever we discussed. It is faster. No special softwares are required. It is not depend on platform. It is platform independent. Like this, you have different you have advantages, and implemented by what? Database vendors. I can say almost all database vendors gives us what? This kind of type 4 implementation. Almost all database vendors provides us this type 4 implementation. Right? And it is preferred, it is recommended to go with what? Type 4 kind of interface, middle layer driver to interact with what? Database softwares. I'm not saying you should not use the previous ones, absolutely you can go with them, but the advantages and disadvantages you need to see here. Right? So these drivers are implemented by database, completely implemented by using Java. Don't need to translate much, right? Like ODBC, JDBC, right? Client application connects directly to the database servers. right? Like no middle layer kind of server. JVM can manage all this middle layer because this middle layer is completely developed by using the Java. Right, the disadvantage is, what is the biggest disadvantage? Now as a programmer point of view, if you see, now you need to identify this middle layer. As a programmer, you need to identify this middle layer. Because this middle layer will be different from what? Database to database, as I'm saying here. Oracle people will give their own implementation. MySQL people will give their own implementation. As a programmer, this is the challenge. Identifying the driver. Now if I want to work with MySQL, you need to identify the MySQL driver. If you want to work with the DB2 of IBM, you need to identify this driver. Simple set of programs, group of programs I can say, all purely developed by using Java. That is simple set of programs. Right? Are you able to follow me here? Both of you. Whatever I have discussed here today, it's completely entirely translation from what? One format to other format. That's it. And there are 4 different ways I can say. In simple, if I want to put, there are 4 different ways the translations can be happen. And this way is the best way from the programmer's point of view. But there is one challenge. You need to identify this particular one. Which drivers, the driver, the set of programs, whatever I'm saying, the set of Java programs, need to identify them. And you need to use them to convert. And this, because they are purely developed by using Java, no special software is required. The Java software, whatever you are using, that simply can manage this middle layer programs. Right? So like this you have here, these are the 4 different types of drivers. Nothing but in simple, in theoretical, if I want to put, if I put 4 different ways to convert what? The Java calls to what? Database calls. That is what I can say. Right? So you can take the images here. Lots of images are available. You can go with any image here. Now this is the one. It's the best one I can see. Is it clear for you? Right? So JDBC type 1 driver, the calls will be converted like this to the underlying database. Type 2 libraries. Right? Some native libraries it is uses, then it converts it. Middleware server, then it can interact with what? Any database server. The type 4 is what? Pure. No other this set of programs. All these drivers are what? Some set of programs. Right? So some are developed by using some languages, some are developed by some clients and all. Here this is the one you can see. It does not have any kind of different libraries, native libraries. It directly can interact with what? Database server. And it is pure developed in Java. Native means native languages. Middleware is a server software. Right? So all those 4 conversions, that's up to you which one you want to use. That is entirely your choice. So but if you go for type 4, you need this layer, this implementation will be different from database to database. Oracle people's implementation of type 4 will be different. MySQL's implementation of type 4 will be different. But here a single server, it is also different from database to database. Database to database, this type 2 also will be different. But the thing is, this type 2 will use native codes. Type 1 again common one for multiple databases. This is ODBC bits. So up to you which one you want to use, that is up to you. So type 1 and type 3 requires some special softwares. Type 2 and type 4 not requires any special softwares. But type 2 dependent on underlying environment, type 4 is not dependent. So this is the meaning of drivers here. So 4 different types of drivers. I can say 4 different ways of converting the application. Java calls to database calls. Right? So that is what you have here. So that is the meaning of drivers here. So if you want to interact with, if you want to write a Java application to interact with what? Database software, definitely you need to use a driver, a bridge. And these bridges are available in 4 different forms. So you can take any one of these things. Right? So this is what you have here. Now this is what as a programmer you need to do. The first point is, what I'm trying to explain is, the first point in this is, whenever you want to interact with any database server by writing a Java program, you should use a middle layer, and that middle layer we call as what? A driver software, a driver. Without using these drivers, it is not possible to interact with what? A database servers by writing a Java program. That is the first thing you need to do. Getting me? Right? So you need to use some, as a programmer, you need to use some middle layer here. That is the only way your application can interact with what? The database server. Without this, using with this middle layer, you cannot interact. And these middle layers are different ways they are implemented. Some are implemented purely in Java, some are implemented by using like some servers, some are implemented by using a native code, some are uses what? ODBC kind of different technology. Right? So different ways. And you can use absolutely anyone you can use. That is your choice. Right? For our applications, I'm going to use the type 4 because it is purely developed set of Java programs. I can say what? This type 4 is purely developed by using some using Java programming, set of Java classes. Right? Now this is the first thing. So that is the first thing if you want to write a Java program. So first thing is you need to identify a particular driver. Identify the driver which you want to use. Identify and use the driver which helps you to interact with the database server. This is what? Identify and use the driver. This is the first thing. Right? Remember this? This is the first point we are going to do. Without this, you cannot interact with the database servers. The second thing is, if you want to write your application, yes, you need to know. Because, right, you need to know how to interact with what? Some programming statements are required to interact with what? The database server. Now what is this here? What is the meaning of this, right? So when you talk about, if you come out from this Java programming time being, now whenever you want to interact with any database server through any client, let's suppose if I want to interact with, yesterday we have seen through SQL client, right? The white screen one is SQL client. Through this client, if you want to interact with the database server, so first thing is you need to, right, open a connection with what? Database software by giving some usernames and passwords. Each and every database will have different kind of mechanism. So this is where I'm trying to interact with my database system by some username and password is something here. So like this you have, right? So this is the first thing. Connect to the database. Nothing but I can say open a connection with what? Open the connection with the database, because client and server technologies always requires a connection. Whenever you talk about client and server, the client always needs to open a connection with what? Database server, any server actually. Open the connection. Then once the connection is successfully established in between the client and server, so what client can do here? Right? So once it is done, so if you want to access the database software, what we need to do here? We use some kind of queries. We query the database, right? Send the queries to the database. Write the queries here. Then execute the queries. Generally, writing and executing both are coming to database softwares will be same. Execute the queries. This is what we do in databases. Execute the query, whatever the query you have written. And as we discussed, these queries will be written by using a language called as SQL. Then after executing, database comes up with some kind of results, right? Receive or take the results. Take the results or process the results. Take and process the results. Means what? Take means what here? In general. Take and process the results. Database will come up with some kind of results. Process the results. And then once you're done with your processing and all, close the connection. The database. That is it. So what does it mean here? Now open the database connection. So I have used a query. I have used some syntax here, some command where by using which I am able to interact with what? My database software. Connect. Then I have connected to database software here. So I did this first operation. So once I connect it, then I need to write a query here. Let's suppose I would like to store the data. If you want to store the data, database uses some tables. First you need to create the table. Create. So this is the query we use. Create table. Name of the table, let's suppose test. And how many columns you want to have for this table. Test ID. ID is of what type of data you want to store inside this column. I would like to store the data of type string. So generally in databases it is called as var character, varchar. And okay, ID is not of type varchar, right? It is of type number. You can take, no problem. Number of, let's suppose 5. Then test name. Again it is what type of data I want to store inside this column. I would like to store the varchar of what, 20, right? Then like this you can take. Yes, it is absolutely created. The table is created for you. Now this table can be used to store 2 columns, ID and the name, right? If you want to see the description of the table, we can use describe command. So like this you can create the tables, right? I think already there is a table created with a name called as student, right? So it has ID, name, course, gender and address, 5 columns, right? Now I'm going to work with this student table. In our examples I'm going to take the help of I'm going to work on the student table of Oracle database. What database? Oracle database. Right? Able to follow me here? Now let's me see how much data is there in my table. I need to query it. Select star from what? Table name. So this is the data it is stored. There are some few number of 8 records are there. 8 rows means what? 8 records. Each record has different set of columns. 8 rows with 5 columns. Each row with 5 columns. Total 8 rows and each row has 5 columns. The student ID is what? 30 xyz.net f. I made it like this. Some information. If you want to delete the entire, delete from R. If you want to delete entire table, no problem. Directly you can issue. I am not deleting the table. I am deleting the data from the table. 8 rows are deleted. Right? So just now if you want to test it, now I can test. No rows are there. Select the data from the table because entire data is deleted. No data is available now. If you want to add the data into this table, we use a query called as insert into table name student values. Now first one is ID 1. Second one is I think a name. Single quotations we use for data ABCD. Third one is codes, I think again varchar Java. The fourth one is gender, again something, right? Again the fifth one is location, right? Something. It is saved. Committing means what? Permanently save it. Now if you want to select it, now you got the data. So this is how you write the queries and get the results and do the processing and also open the connection, write the queries, execute them. Executing is nothing but simply pressing the enter is nothing but executing. If you write a wrong query here, if you write a wrong query, let's suppose I'm writing misplaced this keyword. So the query will be compiled in the database also. Database compiles it. If it is not correct, now it is giving you the error, compile time error. Query will be compiled. When you press enter, there is in programming language we have 2 different processes, compiling separate and execution separate. And here when you type enter here, it is going to compile as well as execute. Both are going to be done at a single stroke. What is it? Enter, simple enter. After writing your query, press enter, compiles and executes. Right? So this is what? Execute the query, write and execute it. Take and process the results, whatever you want to do with this result. Then after this, close this connection. So these are the 5 common operations we do when you perform when you want to use with any database software. Open and close, in between we take the help of what? Queries to do your activities. So here, what is this here? I am using this SQL client which is given by the Oracle people. This is SQL plus client which is given by the Oracle people. I am using it. But instead of this client, what I have here, what I will have here, instead of this client place, I am going to have what? Right? What I am going to have here? So this is my Oracle database. Now whatever the operations I performed here on this database, there is a client is given for me, and that client is also given by the same software, Oracle people, SQL plus command line, whatever the queries. Now through this I am going to interact with this. But in the place of this client, what I want to do here, what I want to use? I want to use what? A Java program. Yes, my Java program is nothing but a client for that software here. So what steps I need to perform here? So here I am going to write a Java application. Through this I want to perform these operations. So what kind of things I need to do here? What my Java program has to do? Only the difference is the client is changed. From a Oracle client, I am taking a Java client. All these things will be same. All these things will be same. Right? From a Java program, you need to open a connection, then write the query, pass the query from Java program to database. Database is going to compile and execute it, and it comes up with some results, and these results will be given back to your program. Is it directly? Is this mechanism will be happening directly? If this mechanism happens directly, it can be any database actually. Same thing, instead of this client, I am going to have my Java program as client for passing the instructions. But are these two can directly communicate with each other? Like how this Oracle client is interacting with what? Oracle database server. Is my Java program is going to do the same thing? No, it cannot directly interact with it. For this, we have what we have here? We have a middle layer, and this middle layer we are calling as what? A driver. Your Java program is not directly going to interact with what? Your Java program is not going to directly interact with what? The database software. Instead, it is using a middle layer that is called as driver. And with this help of this driver, the Java interacts with what? The database software. And whatever the discussion we have till now related to these drivers, so any one of these 4 drivers you can use. Right? So Java cannot directly interact with this. It should take the help of this middle layer, and this middle layer simply we call as driver. Getting me? But there is one extra statement you need to do as a Java programmer. What is that? These all 5 steps are common, but there is one extra step you need to perform. What is it? Because you are not directly interacting with the database server, this driver is helping you to interact with this. So you need to use this driver inside your application. You need to use this driver inside your application. So this step we technically say as what? This is only one step. Apart from these 5 steps, this is one step you need to do extra. What is this? Because you are using this middle layer. So this middle layer should be used by your program. Right? So this statement we call as what? Right? Technically we call this as load R register the driver with your application. So first you need to register the driver. Which driver you want to use? You need to register it. Once it is successfully registered with your application, then you can make use of this driver to interact with what database. Then this bottom 5 statements are same. But this is the one extra statement you need to perform as a Java programmer. What is that? Because you should interact with the database by using some kind of middle layer. This middle layer should be registered or loaded with your application. Getting me? Remaining all are same here. Okay? Are you following me here? So remaining all are same here. Nothing is there. So these are the sequence of operations we are going to perform. whenever you want to interact with any database server, so these are the sequence of statements. These five are the common sequence of statements, because which I did previously with the database, the client which is given by the Oracle people. The same five statements. So closing means what? So how to close it? Exit. I think it is the command. It's fine. It is disconnected. But this is the one extra statement you need to perform as a Java programmer. So these are common operations which will be performed by any client. But because you want to interact with the Java program, there is one, that middle layer should be loaded with your application. Should be registered with your application. This is what we are going to do here. Getting me? Right? Now we try to understand, so because we are writing a Java program, we are going to write a Java statements here. So each statement, there are different statements, are there different kind of processes there. This process involves in different phases, I can say. And for each and every phase, in Java program, we'll be having different classes are used to do these things. Right? So as I told you here, using the driver is the one thing. The second thing is, as a programmer, you need to understand, right? You need to understand what is the JDBC specification mean. Yesterday's example, right? What is that example? If you want to ride a bike, first of all, you need to know what is a bike mean. Right? If you want to use this layer, so first of all, you need to know how to use it. Getting me? If you want to drive a bike, you need to know how to use it first. Then only you can ride it. In the same way, how I can use this layer to interact with what? This database. So this is what we are talking about. So this is what Java specification, guidelines. Right? So Java API is given, JDBC API. So we'll be going through the API. So what is this JDBC API? So we'll be seeing what is this JDBC API and how can I use this API to interact with what? The database software. Set of class and interface are given to perform each and every statement here. Just we need to understand which class and which class is given for us to do which task here. Right? So this JDBC specification, whatever the specification we are talking about since yesterday, so this specification comes in two packages. These two packages are like java.sql package, set of class and interfaces, and java x.sql package. Right? One is core package, java.sql is the core package we say, and java x.sql is the advanced package, extension to the core. And very interesting is this specification can be used with what? This is the specification, JDBC is the specification can be used to develop desktop applications, as well as what? The same specification is used to develop what? Web applications. When you have internet kind of application, whenever you want to develop the internet kind of applications, so you can go with the same JDBC. Same API can be used to develop desktop as well as what? Web applications. So I did not introduce any web applications. So we'll be working with what? Desktop applications. Nothing but normal Java code. Console based applications, right? So this JDBC specification is given us in the form of two packages, java.sql and java x.sql. So we try to understand this JDBC specification here. Right? Okay. No, nothing but I know here. Just I'm saying yesterday's example, right? So I'm trying to know what is a bike mean here. If I know what is a bike mean, then only I can drive it, kind of thing. What is this JDBC actually? How can I use this JDBC? What it contains? That is what I'm trying to know here now. Right? So this is not a different thing here, as we discussed. Different packages, two packages, core and advanced package. API, again the document I'm opening, and it's very important to understand this. Because as I told you, nothing is there inside. Why? Because these are the common steps we'll be performing. What you do here, these are the very common steps we'll perform. How many applications you write from your first program, to the, how many applications you develop by using this JDBC. These are the common statements. Nothing you do apart from this common set of statements here, right? Open the connection, write the queries, process the queries, and all. Close the connection. That's it, right? So here, let's see here. What is this JDBC specification? API is right here. What is that package? Java.sql, the package which contains some set of classes and interfaces. And most, if you observe, contains what? Most of them are interfaces. Why most of them are interfaces? Because they need to be implemented by the third-party vendors, not given by the Java people. Less number of classes you can see. Very less number of classes. And most are interfaces because they should be implemented by third-party vendors. Getting me? All core Java only. Nothing is there, interface and classes. Right? Okay. The first and foremost interface is this one. So you can see there is one interface called as driver. So what is Java.sql package? Provides the API for accessing and processing the data stored in the data sources. Usually relational databases. It is not that this API can work with only databases, relational databases. No. You can use this API to interact with what? Some flat files, Word documents, Excel sheets. Those are also data sources, right? So this API can interact with this normal text files also. But most probably we'll be using what? Relational databases. To interact with what? Relational databases, most probably we'll be using this. Getting me? Right? So provides an API for accessing and processing the data stored in the data sources using the Java programming language. Contains set of class and interfaces. Right? Now this is what here? A driver is the root interface. What is this? A root interface you have with the name called as driver. What is a driver? The interface that every driver must implement. Driver class must implement. So what does it mean here? So whatever we are talking about this middle layer, whatever the middle layer we are talking about, this middle layer, right? So this middle layer must have, so this middle layer is nothing but some set of programs in simple. This set of programs may be Java programs, or these programs may be C and C++ kind of programs. That's dependent on the implementation. So this set of programs must have one child class. Out of all these set of programs, there must be one class, Java class, and which should be a child class for an interface called as what? This interface. There should be one class inside the driver, and which should be a child class for this interface. Right? So this interface that every driver class must implement. And this provides what? Implementing of multiple database drivers. As we discussed, Oracle people has given two different implementations, type 2 driver as well as what? Type 4 driver. That depends on the database vendors. Right? You cannot say that all database vendors provides you with the type 2 and type 4. Oracle people has provided 2. Right? This is a very important point. Each driver should supply a class that implements what? This interface. Getting me? Each driver, this middle layer must have a class, and that class must be implemented from what? This interface. Right? So that means what? This is a very important thing here. This is a very important key point here to writing a Java program by using JDBC API. So whatever this middle layer we are talking about, this driver, definitely must have a class, Java class, and that Java class must implement an interface called as what? Driver interface. There may be hundreds of classes. This middle layer may contain hundreds of classes, but there should be one compulsory class which must be a child class for what? That interface. And that class we call as what? And that class we call as, what we call that class as? That class we call as driver class. driver class. We call that class as what? Driver class. Getting me? Are you following this? So this middle layer, whatever I am talking about, must have a class, and that class must be a child class for that interface, and that class we call as a driver class. And that is the meaning of this first statement here. What is the meaning of first statement in our application development? Load or register the driver class. What is the meaning of load or register the driver? So whatever the class which is a child class for this driver interface, so we take the help of this class in your application. So that is a starting point. Using that class, if you want to use this middle layer in your application, so you need to use that class in your application, which is a starting point for your application to interact with what? The database software. Getting me? So there will be one class in this entire middle layer, and we use that class in your application, and that class may be different from what? These classes will be different from different database vendors. Type 1 drivers, if I use type 1 driver, the class is different. If I use type 2 driver, the class will be different. If I use type 3 driver, the class will be different. If I use type 4 driver, the class will be different. So as a programmer, there is the first challenge you need to face. So identifying this set of classes, right, driver, and identifying out of those, identifying the class, driver class, which helps your program to interact with what? Database. Right? So for this Oracle, no need to actually, you should not butify these things, because nothing is guaranteed here. Nothing is guaranteed. Different database vendors will give you different classes. For Oracle, there is a class which is given. The class name is oracle.jdbc.oracle driver. This is Java class of Oracle people's given Java class, and which is a implementation of what? Driver interface. Now I need to take the help of this class in my program. So I need to use this class in my program, and with the help of this program I can interact with what? So using this class in your application means what? Using this class in your application means now you are making use of this driver, and once it is loaded successfully, loading a driver means what? Using this class to load this driver with your application. Once it is loaded, then you can make use of this driver to interact with what? This database. This is the first statement. And if it is type 1 driver, type 2 driver, type 3 or type 4, any kind of driver, there should be one class. Right? This is for Oracle database. This is the class which is given by Oracle people, and this is a driver class. Getting me? Right? If you go for MySQL database, this class will be changes, because this driver class implemented by MySQL people will be different. Something like com.mysql.driver, something will be there. For DB2 database, it will be different. Right? So this is what we are going to do here. Now, so there should be one class, and we take the help of this class. Each and every driver will have one class, and we take the help of that class, and we use this class to load in your application. Right? So this is what this interface is going to do. So the class which implements, so as we talked about, so this is an interface. So the class which implements an interface, what that class should do? It should override all the methods of an interface, right? Getting me? This is again core Java rule. The class, so according to the specification rule, what is the specification rule says here? If you have your own database, let's suppose, assume that if you have your own database, I have my database software, now I want to use the Java software. What you need to do? As a database vendor, you need to implement that middle layer, and that middle layer must have a class, and that class must be a child class for what? This interface. And the class which implements an interface, that class should do what? That class should override all the methods. That class should override all the methods from the interface. Again, simple core Java rule. If a class implements an interface, that class must override all the methods of an interface. See here. See the method here. There is a method called as connect. What is the purpose of this connect method? Used to connect to the database. Like this, there are some methods are there, but this is the second phase you have here. What is the second statement we have described when we talk about this using? So load that class, and that class helps you to connect to what? To the database. Then once it is connected to the database, then you can go with this. This is a normal, right? So how to take this class, how to take the driver class from this jar file, how to take this driver class from this driver, and how to register with this driver into your application. Load this class with your application. How can I do this? Right? So to do this mechanism, there is one class is given. That class is called as, right, driver manager. There is one class is given. What is it? The driver manager. What is the driver manager here? There is one Java class which is given for you. What is this class is going to do? This class is tries to load the drivers, and not only one, it can load multiple drivers. But at a time you can connect to only one database software, not multiple. So how to load these drivers with your application? We have given a class called as what? Driver manager. And this class responsibility is to do what? Load that driver class with your application. Right? Then once you load this driver class with your application, then what you can do here? Then you can establish the connection with what? The database. Right? Right, like this. Once it is loaded, then you can connect to the database. So there is some guidelines are given here. So the driver class is loaded. When a driver class is loaded, then it should create the object for this driver manager. So what is this driver manager? So this driver manager is a class. So your application code starts from this class only. Right? So your application code starts from this class only. This is the first statement. To write this statement, there is one class is given. To do this operation, there is one class is given in the JDBC API. What is that class? Driver manager. So what is the responsibility of this driver manager? What is the responsibility of this driver manager class? It loads. So this class takes the input. Out of all this driver, from this driver, it takes the one input as what? The driver class as input, and it loads this driver class with your application. So the driver manager takes this driver class as input, then it loads this driver with your application. Means what? Now your driver, this middle layer is ready, can be used. Now once it is loaded successfully, now this middle layer, you can use this middle layer to interact with what? This database. So this is the first thing this driver manager is going to do, and this is a class. Driver manager is a class. Nothing here, nothing much to discuss about this interface here. One simple point, there should be one class implementing this interface, and that class we call as driver class, and the driver class are different from database to database. So this is a class. Driver manager is a class. Now what is this responsibility of this class? So the basic service is managing the drivers. Managing the drivers means what? Managing that middle layer is the responsibility of this class. Are you following me what I'm trying to explain here? Very simple class, driver manager, which responsibility is used to manage the drivers, whatever the middle layer we are talking about. So this middle layer will be managed with the help of one class, and that class is called as driver manager. Right? So like this, you have this driver manager class. So it has still some other responsibilities. So once that middle layer is loaded with your application, once this middle layer is loaded into your application, and after that what you need to do here? Then connect to the database. Once this is done, then connect to the database. And the second responsibility, the second thing is also done by the same class. So driver manager class is responsible for, it has two major tasks it is going to do. What is it? Load that driver. Load the driver. Once the driver is successfully loaded, then connect to the database. Establish the connection with what? Or open the connection with the database. So these are the two responsibilities of this class. Open the connection. Load the middle layer and open the connection. Right? This middle layer is driver. So if the middle layer is loaded, let's suppose this middle layer, this driver is loaded, if this driver is Oracle's driver, let's suppose this driver is, right, if this driver is Oracle's, then this driver manager opens a connection with what? Oracle database. If this driver is MySQL's, if this driver is MySQL driver is loaded with your database, that driver manager class opens the connection with what? MySQL database. It entirely depends on the driver what you use. If you are using the driver which is given by the Oracle people, this driver manager class opens the connection with Oracle. Then if you are using this interface, MySQL's interface, this driver manager class loads it and opens the connection with that particular database server. So you need to be very careful here choosing these drivers. If your driver is Oracle's, this opens the connection with Oracle. Load it and open the connection with Oracle software. If it is MySQL, load it and open the connection with what? MySQL database, right? So here, this is what you have here. So this is the first thing. Driver manager has two responsibilities. What two responsibilities here? First, manage the drivers, right? Nothing but by loading the driver class. And the second one is used, where is it? Yeah. So when you call this method, there is one method is given in this class. When you call this, method, and this driver manager will attempt to locate and establish the connection with a database, particular database. That's what I'm trying to explain. If the driver is loaded, Oracle's driver is loaded, it attempts to, it tries to connect to what? With a Oracle database. If the MySQL's driver is loaded, it tries to connect with a what? MySQL database. So that is what this point here is. When this method is called, the driver manager will attempt to locate a suitable driver from the multiple drivers, and it is tries to attempt that particular database connection. Alright, so these are the two responsibilities you have here. Right? So if you pictorially represent it, right, if you more clearly represent it, are you following me? One program is required so that you can understand this. Only one simple program. This huge theory I'm explaining. So this side you have a database to which you want to connect. So or let us take two different databases so it is easy for me to explain. Actually, this is a one database, let us assume. This is a one more database, let us assume, right? Yeah, like this. These are databases. Let's suppose the first one is Oracle, the second one is MySQL. This is what? Oracle. Second one is MySQL. Right? Now this is where you have the Java application. This is your Java application. Right? Now in between these two, you will have drivers here. So the Oracle people's given driver will be there, or there will be a common driver also. That depends on. Let's suppose I'm trying to explain the fourth one. Oracle people given driver will be there, and MySQL people implemented driver will be there. Type 4 I'm talking about, right? Type 1 will be common. Type 3 is server. Now if you want to load this driver with your application, so what you should do here? So in this entire set of programs, driver is nothing but, as I'm saying here, set of programs. In this entire set of programmers, there should be one class. And how to load this class in your application? We take the help of a class called as what? Driver manager. This is going to do this. After loading it, now your application is not physically connected to the database. It is just loaded this driver. Then what is the second step? So this Second step is to establish the connection with this database. How it is going to do? The same class is responsible for what? Establishing the connection with database also. Load as well as establish the connection. The first step is loading. The second step is establish the connection. So what is the meaning of establishing a connection in the terms of Java? Right? The first thing is, if you load the driver which is given by the Oracle people, while you establish the connection, while you try to establish the connection, because the driver is loaded of Oracle, it establishes the connection with Oracle software. Instead, if you load this MySQL's driver with your application, now while establishing the connection, instead of establishing the connection with Oracle, it tries to what? Establish the connection with what? MySQL. It entirely depends on the driver what you load here. And it is possible to load multiple drivers at a time also. That is also possible. But connection can be established with only one database software, not for multiple databases, right? So that is what we have here. So that is the meaning of loading. Now, once you load it, then there are some methods are there. Loading means what? There are some simple methods are there to do this task. Then once the connection is established, so this connection will be represented by using one Java object. Right? So it is responsible for loading this, and it is responsible for establishing the connection. Once this connection is successfully established, so this connection will be represented with one Java object. A Java object which represents this physical connection. So what is this connection object is? Can I say what is this object, Java object? How this Java object uses? Now this Java object is, I can say, which is physically connected to a database software. Now whatever the operations you want to perform, that means what? A connection open. What is this connection open mean here? Open the connection with the database, nothing but. Opening a connection with the database, nothing but. Once you open this connection, there will be one object will be created. One Java object will be created. Now whatever the operations you want to perform, right? Every operation should be performed under this connection object only. Now closing this object is nothing but what? Is closing the connection. Opening the connection and closing the connection. To open the connection, we take the help of driver manager class, and once the connection is opened, this object will be represented with one other class. The different object we get, right? So this is a different object we get here, and this object is represented by using some other class here, and that class we call as what? That class we call as connection. Actually it is an interface. What is the connection here? Right? A connection with a specific database. What is the connection represent here? Once a connection is established with a database, there is one Java object which represents this connection, and this object we call as connection object. A connection object here with a specific database. Now whatever the operations you want to perform on the database, all these operations should be performed by using this connection only. Nothing but writing the queries, executing the queries, then getting the results and closing the connection. Everything should be performed under this object. This is one object. I can say physical. Now this object represents a physical connection with the database. And through this object only, whatever the operations you want to perform, all these operations should be performed here. So this is the connection object. But how to get this connection object? How we get this connection object? We get this connection object with the help of what? Driver manager. Right? So this is the second thing here we have. Then writing the queries in the Java. We don't say the queries here in Java. In databases we call them as queries. But coming to Java we call them as statements. We call them as what? Statements. And these statements are represented with some kind of object again. So connection represented with one object, Java object. Once the connection is established, whatever the query you write, this query will be represented with one Java object, separate Java object. Right? Whatever the results you will get, those results will be stored in some other Java object. These are all Java objects. These are Java's objects here, different objects. One is represents a physical connection with the database. One represents the query, whatever the query you want to execute. So that object is different. Once the results comes from your database to Java, to represent the results, one other object is given for you. Like this, you have different objects used to represent different statement here, right? So if I put all this discussion technically, the architecture of classes, Java class architecture will be getting like this, right? So what is the architecture of classes you will get here? The first class we use is driver manager. What is the purpose of this driver manager class? This driver manager class loads the driver and it gives you what? A connection, and that connection object is represented with a Java object. That connection represented with a Java object, and that object we call as connection object. Once you got a connection object, then the next thing is what? You write the queries, and these queries should be written by using a connection only, and these queries we call as statement objects in Java. Statement objects. All queries will be right. So this connection object is used to write the queries, and to execute the queries we have some different objects. They are called as statement objects. Once your queries are executed, if you get any results, so if you want to store these results, there is some kind of other object is given. This object is called as result set object. All are Java interfaces. Whatever I am explaining, all are Java interfaces only. Connection, which represents a physical connection with the database. Once this connection is established, what you do next? Writing the queries. Writing the queries. So this connection object is used, helps us to write the queries, right? And once you write the queries, then these queries will be executed by using some other objects. These objects are called as what? Statement objects. This object is used to executing the static SQL queries. Whatever you have in the database side, right? Whatever the operation, whatever the steps you have in the database side, the same thing I am going to do. But here in the Java, each and every operation will be represented with one object here. The first one is represented with the object called as driver manager. The second statement is represented with the object called as connection object, right? The third one is represented with the object called as a statement object. This is represented with one more Java object called as what? Result set object. Then like this. And each object is dependent on other object. So driver manager gives you connection. Connection gives you statement. Statement gives you result set. This is what a Java program. Very simple, right? So this is how you will have. So if you see this architecture of program, this program architecture, whatever the statements I have given, these are the same statements. Will always write the same here. Now let's see actually. Now here, this is what you have. You will find lots of diagrams here. All diagrams will be same. Now what is that here? You can take any one of these diagrams. All diagrams will show you the same. See, this is the diagram. Are you able to see this clearly? This one. It's saved fine. Can you see this one? Oh, it's too big. Can you see this one? Are you able to see this? Yes, fine then. So this is Java application. Uses JDBC API. And here what is this? Manager. Driver manager. What is this driver manager is going to do? Is going to take any driver. It can be type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. That's your dependent. So this driver manager takes the driver and this opens the connection with what? Database. And that object is represented with a connection. Once the connection is opened, then that object is represented with a connection. Then afterwards you will have what? The next statements represented with some other Java objects. Results will be represented with some other Java objects like this. One object is dependent on another. So if you see here, we search with the diagram like steps to write a JDBC program. Oh, it's not JDBC driver. I'm going to take the again images. Right. This is the one. This is the simple diagram you can entirely use for your entire code Java, this JDBC. Driver manager, what is going to do? Load the database driver, then get the connection. And that connection will be represented with what? One object called as a connection object. From this, you will write the queries. So this connection object is used to write the queries. Then after writing the queries, you execute the queries by using some other object. That object is called as what? Statement object. Once you execute the queries, you will get the results. So the statement objects are responsible for executing the queries. Once you execute the queries, you will get the results, and these results will be stored inside one object. That object is called as result set object. Then close the connection. So connection can be closed anywhere here actually. Open and close like this. This is a simple diagram. Entire JDBC is the simple diagram. Getting me? Different Java objects represent different statements, tasks. This is to load and establish. This is for this is represents a connection to write the query. This is to execute the query. This is to store the results and all. And what is the steps you have here? What steps you will have here is right now. If we technically see the steps, yeah, there will be some common steps here. No other way you write it. These are the very common steps you have here. What are the common steps you have? Right. So load the driver. We take the help of a driver manager class. Then connection. Then statement. Then result set. Then close. So this is what you have. Layers. Driver manager, connection, statement, result sets. Let me. I'm searching for an appropriate image here. We'll find beautiful images. All same. How many images you can see here? Almost all same here. Step to write JDBC program. It is something, yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. So this diagram is the best diagram here. You should see this from bottom to top, right? See here, driver, this is what this is a middle layer which we are talking about, is loaded with the driver manager, gives you what? Connection, and this connection can give you what? Statements. There are different types of statements anyway. Not only one statement, prepare statement, callable statement. All are for executing the queries. Then results, result set object. Nothing you do here. Very simple. Getting me? So this is the driver. These drivers can be specific to database vendors. They can be common to all databases. That depends. And you need to use these drivers. And these drivers will be managed by the driver manager. Then this gives you connection. Then from that connection, we write the queries, then we execute the queries, we store the results. That is what you have here. Getting me? Very simple, nothing is there. First program to 100 programs, 1000 programs, the same diagram. Simple 4 steps. It's not that much complex. Is it okay? Are you following me? Or is it complex? Nothing is there inside this JDBC. Very simple, very simple. So this, if you remember these images, it is easy for you to write. That is the reason why I'm showing you lots of images here. You will find a beautiful diagram, still more clear diagrams if you search for these things. Nothing complex I see. This is what here. You want to see one program, then we do it. Not a problem. Right. Fine. Right, let me create one directory. Create directory. Right. Now just remember the steps here. So I'm going to write a normal Java program with one main method. Public class. So because the first thing is I am using the classes from what package? I'm using classes from a package called as java.sql package. The driver manager class or connection, all are these from this package. Then I need to import the package. There's a very basic fundamental rule we have. If you use the classes from a package, you need to import it. First is, so import the package, SQL package. Then what I need to do here? The first thing is, right, I'm saving it. Directly you get the connection, right? Before getting the connection, you need to load that middle intermediate layer. What is that intermediate layer? Driver should be loaded. How the driver should be loaded? We take the help of a class called as a driver manager. We take the help of a class called as driver manager. So in the driver manager class, where there is a method given for you, that method is register driver. Driver manager is a class with all static methods. We don't create the object for this class because this class has all static methods, and there is one method, static method, which loads your driver. What is this? Driver manager dot register driver. What it takes here? What it takes? What is the parameter I need to pass for this? Driver object. Driver means what? It is a class object. Now what is this class? Driver is the interface actually we discussed, and this interface will be implemented by the third party vendors, and you need to pass the object of that class. So I'm using this method. What is it? Driver manager is the class, M capital dot, what is that method? So this is the first thing. I am loading that interface, middle layer with my application. How should I do? Register driver. Driver manager dot register driver. This method takes one Java object. What is that Java object? This method takes one Java object. What is that Java object? Driver object. So driver object is nothing but what? You cannot create the object for driver. Why? Because driver is the interface. But here you can pass the child class objects. Now, as I told you, this is a child class for driver interface implemented for Oracle. New Oracle dot JDBC dot Oracle driver. You should not modify these class names and all, because these names will changes from class database to database. This is the first statement. Done. So what I am going to write is system dot out dot print ln of. So what is the meaning of this? If the statement is successfully executed, I will see this. Driver is loaded successfully. Right? What is this? Is it a Java class? This is a Java class. Oracle is the package name. Oracle.jdbc is the package name and this is a class name. But the question is, who implemented this class? This is a very toughest to understand. This is a bit complex to understand. Who implemented this class? What is this class here? So this is the class which is implemented by Oracle people, and which implements an interface called as what? Driver interface. Okay. Now let me compile my program. Right? Let me compile my program. It is not establishes any connection. This statement will not establish any connection. This statement is simply loads that driver with your application. That's it. Still no connection is established with a database. Java C, what is it? JDBC demo.java. Very interesting. Error you got, compile time error. What your compiler is saying? What is your compiler saying? Boss, I don't find this. I don't understand what is this is. Oracle.jdbc. Oracle.jdbc is a package and this is a class. But it is not understanding this one. Now what I told you here, this is the important image you have here. What I told you, oh, I removed it. Right, okay, it's fine. So here, what is this? This is, we are talking about what? Yeah, what is this? This one is a driver, right? As I told you, implementation. Simple, remember this, set of programs. Set of what? Programs. And out of this set of programs, this set of programs can be containing all these set of programs can be developed by using pure Java, or they can have some other language. That is what I discussed previously. And out of this all set of programs, there should be one class, and that class we call as driver class. So this is the one. This is the meaning of that class. This is the meaning of this class. Yes or no? So I am using a class. I'm trying to use a class from this set of programs, and which is given by Oracle. It is not predefined Java class. This is not predefined Java class like string. This class, whatever the class I have used here, this is not a predefined Java class. Getting me? This is not predefined Java class. This is the class which is developed by some other programmer like you. Now if I want to use this class, what should I do here? If I want to use this class, as when I discussed the packages, I had told you this. Whenever you want to use the classes which are developed by some other programmers, so these classes must be there in your class path. This is the class which is not predefined class, which is not written by me. This is the class which is written by some other programmer, and I want to use this class, and this class must be there in your class path. But where is this class? First thing is, where is this class is? This is the class I am using. Where is this class? Given by some third party vendor. Now this is where the important thing. Just okay. This is not written by me. This is not given by some other Java. This is not given by the Java predefined. This is not a Java predefined class, and it is not written by me. This is given by some other programmer, and I am using it. And Java is saying, boss, you are trying to use a class. I don't find this class. Because as we discussed packages, when I have explained the packages, Java is going to search for the classes in some environments, some locations, and these locations are called as what? Those locations should be there inside what? Class path. Now this is where, now interesting thing you will find here, that is where this class paths and all important. Now I am going to use this. See this, carefully observe. I am opening my C drive. In the C drive, there is Oracle software. What is this? Oracle software. App, Oracle product, this Oracle 11. See there, very interestingly, there is in the Oracle software, you can see the location here. In the Oracle software, there is one folder with the name JDBC. What is this JDBC contains? What is this folder contains now? This is the folder which contains the drivers. Now there is a lib folder. Now this is the driver. Nothing but what? As I told you, what is the driver here? It is not a simple thing. It is a set of programs. This is a set of programs, and this set of programs are shifted for us as one file, and this file we call as jar file. What we call this file? Jar file. Set of programs which are shifted for us, and these are the jar files. OJDBC6, OJDBC5. These are all what? Bundles of some programs. Whatever the set of programs which I am talking about, all these programs are, all these classes are shifted for me in the form of what? One file, and that file we call as what? A jar file. Jar file is nothing but what? Java archive. Right? Just it is a, you can open this. I am opening this. OJDBC6, right? What is this OJDBC6? See this? OJDBC6 given by Oracle people. See, this is the folder name, Oracle dot JDBC dot what class I am using? Oracle dot JDBC dot Oracle driver. See, this is the class. Packages are nothing but folders. That is what we discussed, right? So you can, if you extract this, you will find that class, whatever the class I am using. Jar file OJDBC6.jar, double click, Oracle package name, JDBC package name, and what? Class name is Oracle driver. And what is this? This entire implementation, this entire file, this entire single file is nothing but a driver, I can say. This entire single file is nothing but a driver for you now. Getting me? What is OJDBC6 or OJDBC5? It is better to use OJDBC6. Who implemented this OJDBC6? Set of classes. Inside this OJDBC6, I have set of classes, and the set of classes helps me to interact with what? Database software, and the database software is Oracle, implemented by Oracle people. Are you able to follow me now? What I am trying to explain? So this one I am talking about. These set of classes are given for us by the Oracle people, and they are shifted all these classes as a single bundle, and this bundle name we call as OJDBC6.jar. This bundle is not always named as OJDBC6. Again, you need to take care here. So this is for Oracle 11G. If you use the Oracle 11G software, this is the bundle. If you use the Oracle 10G, it is named as what? Oracle 10G. It is named as, this bundle is named as OJDBC14. What is the name of this? OJDBC14.jar. And you will find this bundle inside Oracle software itself, or it is freely downloadable over the net. If you work with Oracle 8i and 9i, this bundle name is different. That is classes 111.jar, something will be there. Because I am working with Oracle 11, so this is a jar file. This is a simple group of classes, nothing is there. Set of classes. And this set of classes helps me to interact with what? Interact with the database. This is the type 4 or type 2. Now I am copying this set of classes from the Oracle folder and I am pasting this set of classes in my folder. It's fine. It's not required to copy and paste also. Now I'm just taking my folder. It is because it is easy for me to use this if I have this in my bundle. So what is this here? This is my program. This program uses this bundle, and in this bundle I have some set of classes, and this is what I'm trying to call as driver, which takes my Java program instructions, and this bundle of classes helps me to interact with what? This database software. Now these classes need to be there. Now I want to use these classes which are developed by the third-party vendors. Now how should I use these classes? So this bundle must be there inside my class path. How to add it? Set class path is equals to, what is it, file name? It is inside /online classes. Inside this JDBC, inside this I have a file name called as, I have a file, and in this file I have bundle. So this is a bundle of classes, right? And these classes must be there in my class path. Are you following me? I am using some classes given by some third-party vendor, and this file should be there in my class path. And this is here, online classes JDBC. This is my location, and OJDBC6 is the file which contains all the classes which are required for you. Nothing but a driver, right? Now let me. That's it. I am not doing anything because set of classes I am using, and these classes I am placing in my class path. That's it. Now let me compile my program. Now is it compiled fine now? It is still giving me the error. What is the error now? Same. Oracle driver. It is temporary. Whatever I said is temporary. You can make it as permanent also. Still it is giving the same error. Maybe the problem with the setting the class path. Let me check my class path once. So how to test it? Echo percentile. It's fine, but I think it is using these semicolons also. Let me try to remove this. It's fine now, and let me compile my program. Right, it is a different error you have. It is not saying I don't find the package. It is find this package now, but it is saying what? Every JDBC program throws you checked exception called as SQL exception, because I am taking the help of some middle layer. So these middle layer classes I am taking the help of, and these classes, if they cannot help you, if they cannot establish the connection with the database and all, right? So simply you need to write checked exception. How to handle the checked exceptions? You know that. Throws SQL exception. Fine. Now let me compile my program. It's compiled fine. Right. Now let me execute it. Fine. What is the meaning of this now? You see here, it is taken too much of time to load this. Now it's fine. What is the meaning of driver is loaded? Now that middle layer is loaded with your application, Now once the middle layer is loaded with your application, you can connect to the database. How to connect to the database? Again, we take the help of driver manager. Dot get connection is the method. What is this? I am trying to get the connection from a database, and this connection will be stored inside one object. That object we call as connection object. Alright, so if you see this, now when I use my direct SQL client, what I did there, when I used my SQL client directly, Oracle's SQL client have used some kind of command here. What is it? System by guru. What is this? I need to authenticate here. So different databases uses different mechanisms here. The first thing is you need to pass the username. What is the username? System. Same thing, to connect to the database I need to pass the username and password, and password is what? These are my password. But here you need to pass some other thing here. You need to pass, because these applications client and servers can be located over the network anywhere. It's not that the server software should be there inside the same machine. The server can be located anywhere in the network, and the client can connect to the server software from anywhere from the network. So generally, whenever you come across real-time development environments, in each and every development box, there will be this database software will not be installed generally. There will be centralized database server, and every programmer connects to that centralized database server. And you need to pass that information about the database, where it is located. So your Oracle software is located. So in our example, my Java client and my server software both are located in the same machine. I need to pass the address of the machine, right? So it is whenever a client interacts with, it is same like here. Now whenever I try to interact with what? A server, Gmail server, what I do here? Generally we use a protocol, what type of communication I want to have, and then we try to give the address of that website like this. It is going to connect to the Gmail, right? In the same way, it is not different here. A URL, we call it as what? URL. URL is nothing but which helps us to connect to what? A particular database. So JDBC is the protocol. In the URL, there will be 4 parts. What is the first part? We call as protocol, HTTP. In the web, we use a protocol called as HTTP. In the JDBC, we use a protocol called as JDBC. JDBC colon, Oracle colon, thin colon. This entire is protocol. After this, where your software is running, my software is running in my same machine. When the server software is also running in the same machine, there we give the address as what? Localhost. And in a machine where it is running, 1521 is in each and every machine, right? These are all some key points. You will understand these things when we discuss servlets, right? So what is this 1521? Whenever you take like a CPU, in the CPU at a time you can run multiple applications, yes or no? And each and every application runs in a specific location. So that location we call as port, PORT, and Oracle runs in a port number called as 1521. This is by default. When you install your Oracle software, these things will be taken, these port numbers and all. Then you need to pass some kind of service name. If this statement is executed, that means what? You have a physical connection established with the database server. Now this is a physical connection established, right? First statement is to load this middle layer. Second statement is to establish the connection with the database. Now I'm using my command prompt. Again, let me compile it and execute it. Connection is established. These parameters, whatever I am writing, changes. Depends on your database configuration. If your database is installed in some other location, if your database is using some other username and password, every statement here changes. Careful. If you change the database also, these things changes. These things works with only Oracle, and it is not always for all the Oracles. These usernames and passwords. That's your installation. While you install your software, it is going to ask this information: usernames, passwords, these port numbers, all will be asked at the time of installing, because I know my database information, just I'm passing this. Now once you have connection, then you need to write what? Once you have connection, then you need to write the queries, then execute it. How to write the query? So connection, after connection you need to write the query. There is a method called as create a statement. So statements are responsible for what? Executing the queries. So this object is responsible for executing the query. The statement object is responsible for executing the query. Now I'm going to execute the query. What query I want to execute? Statement dot. Statement is the object. Connection is the object responsible for writing the query. Statement is the object responsible for executing the query. Execute. Now what I want to execute? I want to execute a query. What query you want to execute? That's your choice. Now let's suppose I want to, let me check. Select star from student. How many records I have in my student table? Only one record, right? Now I would like to insert one more record. What query I need to write? Insert into student values. How many columns I need to insert? 5 columns I need to fill. X, Y, Z. What is that? Still you have course. Still you have gender. Still you have last column. 5 columns are there, right? Some location. Now this is my done. I am done. Loaded the interface, got the connection, and I am trying to execute the query. If this query is executed successfully, what I will see in my database? I will see one more record with this data inserted. That's it. Only this is database code. Nothing is there. Now I am trying to compile my Java program. See this? It's fine. Spelling mistake is there. Execute. Now this is my Java compiler. Compile. Right? This is my Java compiler compiled, and I'm running my program. Oh, it is throwing me an exception, missing comma. See? It's saying what? While it is executing the query, it is giving me error. It's not correctly written query. Insert into student values 2 comma xyz comma .NET. Everywhere it is fine, it looks. Comma. 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 Everywhere it is nicely separated, right? Is it correct? It looks correct. 2 comma xyz comma f comma India. Insert into student values. Everything looks correct. Which one? This is a string. We need to write the query as a strings. And in the database, the data should be inserted by using single quotations. These single quotations are database specific. Let me try to compile again. Definitely there should be error. Definitely there should be error. It will not compile again. I think execute. Yeah, same thing. Missing comma. Where am I missing? Save this program. Same. JDBC localhost thin net localhost XE. It's fine. Insert into student. Let us run this program. Okay, fine. I did not close it. This brace is not closed. That is a problem. This brace is not closed. This is now fine. Data is inserted. Now go to the database. Are you differentiated? Because I am using the both consoles. The black one is my Java console. The white one is what? Database console. Now let me select the students here. How many students I have? See, it is inserted or not? Now let us try to run one more query here. I would like to delete one record from that. Delete. From where I want to delete? From student. Where? What is that? Student number, I think. ID. ID. The student ID is 1. Whose ID is 1? I would like to delete it. How many records are there now? 2 records. 1 and 2. I'm trying to delete one out of those 2. Compile it and delete it. It is deleted. Don't see the data is inserted because I have written this is not inserted. Now it is executed successfully. I can see all system.out.println. Now let us go to the database. Now again let me select it. How many you have now? Only one, right? Select and you have second. Now if you delete second also, you will see 0. That's it. Now compile and execute. Now you go to database and check how many records are there. No rows selected because everything is deleted. This is what? Simple. Is it complex? Nothing is complex. But as a programmer, the thing is this class identification is bit complex, and the jar file, identifying that jar file is complex, and this parameters are complex. Just once you are habituated to this, my program will be same. What will be changes in each and every program? Only the query changes. That's it. Remaining every statement is same. Right?